Hello and welcome to Innovative Learning Process. Now we'll take Economic Survey second part, that is chapter number 7, Industry, all about business reforms, manufacturing sector expected to grow by 6.2% in FY25, driven by electricity and construction. Manufacturing sector to grow by 6.2% in FY25, driven by electricity and construction. India holds 2.8% of global manufacturing share. 2.8% of global manufacturing share compared to China's 28.8%, offering significant growth potential. India holds 2.8% of global manufacturing share and China 28.8%, 10 times higher. Core input industries: cement, second largest cement producer India, second largest cement producer. Per capita consumption of 290 kilogram cement. Per capita consumption of 290 kilogram. Global average 540 kilogram cement. Steel, National Steel Policy and PLI schemes. Steel scrap recycling policy promotes efficient recycling, securing high quality scrap is vital for transitioning to green steel. Steel, National Steel Policy and PLI schemes. Steel scrap recycling policy. It promotes efficient recycling. Securing high quality scrap is vital for transitioning to green steel. Chemical and petrochemical industries. India is a net importer, relying on imports for about 4.5% of petrochemical intermediates. Chemical and petrochemical industries. India is net importer, relying on 45% of petrochemical intermediates. Automobile industries. It drives economic growth with domestic sales rising by 12.5% in FY24. Automobile industries. It drives economic growth with domestic sales rising by 12.5% in FY24. Electronics. India manufactures 99% of its smartphones, reducing import dependency. However, India's electronics market makes up just 4% of global share. 4% of global share, mainly focused on assembling with limited progress in design and components. Focused on assembling with limited progress in design and components. Textile. Textile industry is major employer, contributing 11% to India's manufacturing GBA. 11% to India's manufacturing GBA. Textile sector. India top producer of jute. Second in cotton, silk and man-made fibers. Top producer of jute and second in cotton, silk, man-made fiber. Sixth in largest sixth largest exporter of textiles, India. Technical textiles, India is ranked fifth. Technical textiles, India's ranking is fifth. Pharmaceuticals, India's pharma industry, the third largest globally by volume. India's pharma industry is the third largest globally by volume, has been growing at 10.1% annually over the last 5 years. 10.1% annually over the last 5 years. India's pharma industry. Cell and gene therapy. India making progress with approval of its first indigenously developed CART cell therapy. Cell and gene therapy. First indigenously developed CART cell therapy to speed up access to new drugs. Central Drugs Standard Control Organization allows waivers for local clinical trials for drugs approved in US, UK, Japan, Australia, Canada, EU. MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises, vital to India's economy, creating jobs with low capital costs. MSME, vital to India's economy, creating jobs with low capital costs. Key interventions. Self-Reliant India Fund. Self-Reliant India Fund, MSME Cluster Development Program, Credit Guarantee Scheme, Credit Guarantee Scheme, MSME Cluster Development Program, Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council to resolve delayed payments. Micro Small Enterprises Facilitation Council to resolve delayed payments. MSME Samadhan. These are the key interventions. Champions Postal Champions Portal to address MSME's issues. Portal Champions to address MSME's issues. State-wise patterns in industrial production. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu together account for 43% of India's industrial value. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu together account for 43% of India's industrial value. Conclusion. Goal of becoming a manufacturing powerhouse. India needs coordinated efforts, all levels, government, private sector, skill development, academia, research institutes, financial stakeholders, government, private sector, skill development, academia, research institute, financial state stakeholders. Coordinated efforts is needed. Summary. India's industrial sector expanding rapidly through PLI schemes, ease of doing business reforms, MSME support, but global trade challenges, high logistics costs, skilling gaps require further attention. Global trade challenges, high logistics costs, skilling gaps require further attention. Chapter 8 Services. New challenges for old war horse. Service sector's contribution to total GVA risen from 50.5% in FY14 to 55.3% in FY25. Services sector contribution in total GVA risen from 50.6% FY14, 55.3% in FY25. Services sector contribution to total GVA. Global services exports. India ranked 7th worldwide in global services exports with share of 4.3% in 2023. Global services exports. India ranked 7th. Services exports. Employment. Provides employment approximately 30% of workforce. Servicification of manufacturing. Increasing utilization of services in manufacturing production plus post production value addition. Increasing utilization of services in manufacturing production plus post production value addition. This is servicification of manufacturing. Trade in services. Computer services, business services exports accounts for nearly 70% of India's services exports. Computer services, businesses services, business services exports account for nearly 70% of India's services exports. India remained amongst top 5 major countries in terms of growth in services exports in FY25. India remained amongst top 5 major countries in terms of growth in services exports in FY25. Logistics, physical connectivity based services. logistics and physical connectivity based services. Railways. India's Indian Railways, fourth largest network in the world. Fourth largest network in the world. Indian Railways. Road transport accounted for 78% highest of the total GVA of transport services. Road transport accounted for 78% highest of total GVA of transport services. Aviation. India is fastest growing market globally. Aviation. India is fastest growing market globally. Port, waterways, and shipping. India aims to position shipbuilding and ship repairing among top 5 globally by 2047. India aims to position shipbuilding and ship repair among top 5 globally by 2047 through Maritime India Vision 2030, Maritime Amrit Kal Vision 2047, Maritime India Vision 2030, and Maritime Amrit Kal Vision 2047. Inland water transport with 14,850 kilometer 14,850 kilometer 14,850 kilometer of navigable waterways. India's inland water transport 14,850 kilometer of navigable waterways. Currently 26 operational waterways span over 48,000 kilometer. 26 operational waterways span over 48,000 kilometer. India received 1.8% of world tourism receipts. World tourism receipts during 2023. India received 1.8% of world tourism receipts during 2023. IT services grew at a rate of 12.8% over the last decade, FY13 to FY23. IT services grew at a rate of 12.8% over the last decade, FY13 to FY23, increasing their share of overall GVA from 6.3% to 10.9%. Share of overall GVA from 6.3% to 10.9%. IT services share in overall GVA 6.3% to 10.9%. Global capability centers are emerging. Global capability centers are emerging as strategic hubs reshaping Indian corporate landscape. Their numbers increased to more than 1700 in FY24. Global Capability Center more than 1700 in FY24. Global capability centers increased more than 1700 in FY24. Telecommunication India, second largest telecom market with tele density of 84%. Second largest telecom market with tele density of 84% India. India offers the world's lowest data rates, achieved the fastest global 5G rollout. India offers the world's lowest data rates, achieved the fastest global 5G rollout. Service sector accounts for about 55% of national GVA in FY25. Service sector accounts for about 55% of national GVA in FY25. In FY23, Karnataka, Maharashtra accounted for more than 25% of India's total service sector GBA. GSVA, gross state value added. In FY23, Karnataka and Maharashtra accounted for more than 25% of India's total service sector GSVA, whereas 19 states contributed just 25% to the service sector GSVA. Karnataka and Maharashtra in FY23 accounted for more than 25% of India's total service sector GSBA, whereas 19 states contributed just 25% to the service sector GSBA. Summary: India's service sector remains a key growth driver. India's service sector remains a key growth driver, but AI AI disruptions, regulatory hurdles, global trade shifts require strategic policy intervention for sustained expansion. AI disruptions, regulatory hurdles, global trade shifts require strategic policy intervention for sustained expansion. Chapter 9: Agriculture and Food Management, Sector of the Future. Agriculture and allied activities contributes approximately 16% of country's GDP for FY24. Agriculture and allied activities contributes nearly 16% of country's GDP for FY24 and supports nearly 46.1% of population. 16% of country's GDP and 46.1% of population support agriculture and allied activities. India produces 11.6% of world's cereals, 11.1% of world's cereals, but its crop yields much lower than other top producers. India produces 11.6% of world's cereals, but its crop yields is much lower than other top producers. Seed quality and use of fertilizers, the critical differentiator. Seed quality and use of fertilizers, the critical differentiator. Interventions like seed banks, urea gold, PM Pranam, urea gold, that is urea and sulfur mixture of urea and sulfur, that is urea gold, and PM Pranam. These are the interventions which had been made. Rainfall and irrigation system. 55% net sown area irrigated. 55% net sown area irrigated. More than two-thirds of India's agricultural land faces the threat of drought. More than two-thirds of India's agricultural land faces the threat of drought. Agricultural credit, a critical input. India, 7.75 crore operational KCC accounts, Kisan Credit Card accounts, 7.75 crore India has. KCC expanded in 2018-19 to support the working capital needs of fisheries and animal husbandry. 2018-19 KCC expanded to support the working capital needs of fisheries and animal husbandry. Agriculture mechanization, facilitating access. Agriculture mechanization, facilitating access. Submission on agriculture mechanization, SHAMAM, submission on agricultural mechanization, SHAMAM, helps in establishing CHCs, custom hiring centers. SHAMAM helps in establishing custom hiring centers. Farm machinery banks. Farm machinery banks enable the renting of machinery at affordable rates. Drones to women self-help groups enable the renting of machines at affordable rates, and drones to women self-help groups. Climate change and agriculture. In absence of adaptation measures, rain-fed rice yields in India to reduce by 20% in 2050. In absence of adoption of adaptation measures, rain-fed rice yield in India to reduce by 20% in 2050. Projected to reduce wheat yield by 19.3% in 2050. It is projected about wheat yield that it could reduce by 19.3% in 2050 and rise 20% in 2050. These are the projections. Food processing industries critical for economy. It makes up to 12.41% of total employment in organized sector. Food processing industries critical for economy. It makes up to 12.41% of total employment in organized sector. In FY24, agriculture food exports constitutes nearly 11.7% of India's total export. Agricultural food exports constitutes 11.7% of India's total export in FY24. Food processing industry critical for economy. It makes up to 12.41% of total employment in organized sector. Food processing industry 12.41% of total employment in organized sector. Summary: India's agriculture sector is transforming through productivity reforms, digital innovations, climate resilience. Productivity, productivity reforms, digital innovations, climate resilience. But market access, financial support, and sustainability challenges remain. Market access, financial support, sustainability challenges remain. Chapter 10: Climate and Environment Adaptation Matters. India's per capita carbon emissions are one third of global average. India's per capita carbon emission are one third of global average. Even as it stands among the world's fastest growing economies. Forest Survey of India 2024. An additional carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons CO2 equivalent had been created between 2005 and 21. Forest Survey of India reports 2024 that an additional carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons CO2 equivalent has been created between 2005 and 2021, bringing adaptation to the forefront. India is the seventh most vulnerable country to climate change. India is the seventh most vulnerable country to climate change. India's adaptation spending rose from 3.7% of GDP in FY16 to 5.6% of GDP in FY22. India's adaptation spending rose from 3.7% of GDP in FY16 to 5.6% of GDP in FY22, funded largely by domestic resources. Adaptation spending. Renewable energy. NDC target of 50% by 2030. NDC target of 50% by 2030. Installed capacity generation installed electricity generation capacity from non-fossil fuel sources reached 46.8% in November 2024. Renewable energy. Our NDC target is 50% by 2030. Installed electricity generation capacity from non-fossil fuel resources reached 46.8% by November 2024. Forest cover. Additional carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons CO2 equivalent created. 2.29 billion tons CO2 equivalent created between 2005 and 23. Additional carbon sink. NDC target. Creating additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons by CO2 equivalent by 2030. Forest cover. Additional carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons CO2 equivalent created between 2005 and 23. NDC target is creating additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion 2.5 to 3 billion tons CO2 equivalent by 2030. Coal. 46.2%. Solar energy 20.6%, wind energy 10.5%, hydropower 10.3%, gas 5.4%, nuclear 1.8% nuclear power. Other resources 3.5%, lignite 1.4%, diesel 0.1%. Coal power. Power generation through coal 46.2%, solar 20.6%, wind 10.5%, hydro power 10.3%, gas 5.4%, nuclear 1.8%, other resources 3.5%, lignite 1.4%, diesel 0.1%. Energy transition, learning from experience of developed countries and weighing the options. Coal. India holds 10% of global resources, but just 0.7% of natural gas resources. Coal. 10% of global resources of coal, India holds 10%, but just 0.7% of natural gas resources India has. Life mission, lifestyle for environment. At COP26 in 2021, to promote eco-friendly, nature-aligned lifestyles. Eco-friendly, nature-aligned lifestyles. COP26 in 2021, to promote eco-friendly, nature-aligned lifestyles. Life mission. According to estimates, almost 17% of all food available to consumers worldwide is wasted annually, amounting to more than 8% of global greenhouse emissions. Estimates are suggesting that almost 17% of all food available to consumers worldwide is wasted. 17% of food wasted annually, amounting to more than 8% of global greenhouse emissions. circular economy and resource efficiency. Resource circularity could save 11% of GDP by 2030 and 30% by 2050. Resource circularity could save 11% of GDP could save 11% of GDP by 2030 and 30% by 2050. Plastic pollution. By 2050, plastic will account for 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. By 2050, plastic will account for 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. India per capita plastic consumption. India per capita plastic consumption rates 14 kilogram India. Global average of 35 kilogram global. India's per capita plastic consumption rates 14 kilogram in India and 35 kilogram global average per capita plastic consumption. Air pollution. WHO data shows 99% of global population breathes air with pollutant levels above safe limits, with low and middle income countries facing the highest exposure. Air pollution. WHO data shows 99% of global population breathes air with pollutant levels above safe limits, with low and middle income countries facing the highest exposures. Conclusion. India aims for net zero emission by 2070 and to become developed nation by 2047. India aims for net zero emission by 20. India aims for position itself to make its position with net zero emission by 2070, and also India aspires to become as a developed nation by 2047. And to achieve these visions requires balancing low carbon development with energy security, job creation, economic growth, and environmental sustainability. Low carbon development with energy security, job creation, economic growth, environmental sustainability. India's climate policy focuses on adaptation and energy security, balancing economic growth with sustainability and resilience against extreme weather events. India's climate policy focuses on adaptation and energy security, balancing economic growth with sustainability and resilience against extreme weather events. Chapter 11. Social sector, extending reach and driving empowerment. Economic and social development starts with sustainable and inclusive economic growth, central to the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. Economic and social development starts with sustainable and inclusive economic growth, central to the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. Social services expenditure. Central government's social services expenditure rising trend. Central government's social services expenditure rising trend. Social service expenditure grew at a CAGR compound annual growth rate of 15% from FY21 to FY25. Social service expenditure. Social services expenditure grew at a 15% growth from FY21 to FY25. Education expenditure on education grown at CAGR of 12%. Expenditure on education grew by 12%. Health 18%. Education 12% and health 18%. Expenditure has been growing. GER in higher education. GER, gross enrollment ratio in higher education for 18 to 23 age group, 23%, 23.7% in 2014-15 and 21-22, 28.4%. Gross enrollment ratio in higher education for 18 to 23 age group, 23.7% in 2014-15, now 28.4% in 21-22. Healthcare. Government health expenditure increases from 29% to 48%. Government health expenditure increases from 29% to 48%. Government health expenditure increases from 2.9% to 4.8%. Healthcare sector. Government health expenditure increases from 29% to 38%. NCDs, non-communicable diseases. Proportion of deaths due to NCDs in India increased from 37.9% in 1990, now 2016, 61.8%. Non-communicable diseases, 37.9%, 1990, 61.8% in 2016. Deaths due to non-communicable diseases increased. Out-of-pocket expenditure. In total, health expenditure declines from 62.6% to 39.4%. Out-of-pocket expenditure declines from 62.6% to 39.4%. Rural infrastructure. Roads under Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, 99.6% of the targeted habitations provided connectivity. अंडर PMGSY प्रधानमंत्री ग्राम सड़क योजना 99.6% of the targeted habitations provided connectivity roads housing under प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना ग्रामीण 2.69 crore houses completed since 2016. 2.69 crore houses completed since 2016. 2.69 crore houses completed since 2016. Water bodies 68,843. 68,843 Amrit Sarovar ponds constructed under Mission Amrit Sarovar. 68,843 Amrit Sarovars ponds constructed under Mission Amrit Sarovar. Drinking water 12.2 crore households provided with tap water connections under Jal Jeevan Mission. 12.2 crore households provided with tap water connections under Jal Jeevan Mission. Enhancing rural incomes. Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihood Mission JNRLM. Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Rural Livelihood Mission. Financial inclusion 1.37 lakh self-help groups women members positions on banking correspondent Shakhi 49,284 crore capitalization support provided to self-help groups. Financial inclusion 1.37 lakh self-help groups women members positions on as banking correspondent Shakhi 49,284 crore capitalization support provided to self-help groups. Manrega 99.98% payments are through National Electronic Fund Management System. Wages are transferred under direct benefit transfer Aadhaar based payments. 99.98% payments are through National Electronic Fund Management System. Wages are transferred under direct benefit transfer Aadhaar based payments. Summary. India's social sector reforms focused on education, healthcare, rural development, but quality accessibility, financial sustainability remain key challenges. India's social sector reforms focuses on education, healthcare, rural development, but quality accessibility, financial sustainability remain key challenges. Chapter 12, that is employment and skill development. Existential priorities. Demographic opportunity. with around 26% of the population in the age group of 10 to 24 years. India stands at the cusp of a once in a lifetime demographic opportunity, with around 26% of the population in the to age group 10 to 24 years. India stands at the cusp of a once in a lifetime demographic opportunity. Third largest economy, India. India is poised to be the third largest economy by 2030 of her after USA and China. Third largest economy, India. India is poised to be the third largest economy by 2030 after US and China. State of unemployment. Unemployment rate declined 3.2% 2023-24, 6% 2017-18. Unemployment rate declined. In 17-18, 6% unemployment rate. 23-24, 3.2% only. Labor force participation rate increased 49.3% to 50.4% quarter 2 of FY24 to quarter 2 of FY25. Quarter 2 of FY24 to quarter 2 of FY25. 49.3% to 50.4% labor force participation rate. Proportion of self-employed workers. In workforce has risen from 52.2% in 2017-18, 58.4% in 23-24. Proportion of self-employed workers increased in workforce has risen from 52.2% in 17-18, 58.4% in 23-24. Self-employed workers increased. Sectoral distribution of workforce. Agriculture sector. Agriculture share rise from 44.1% to 46.1%. 44.1% in 17-18. Sectoral distribution of workforce. Agriculture share rise 44.1% in 17-18. 46.1% in 23-24. As per Periodic Labor Force Survey 2023 to 2024. Manufacturing share fall from 12.1% to 11.4%. Manufacturing share fall 12.1% to 11.4%. In services sector 31.1% to 29.7% declined. Services sector 31.1% to 29.7%. Trends in female labor force participation rate has risen female labor force participation rate has risen 23.3% in 1718, 23.3% in 1718, 41.7%, 41.7% in 2324. Most states, 21, have a female labor force participation in the range of 30 to 40%. Most states means 21 states have a female labor force participation rate in range of 30 to 40%. Corporate profitability increased. Soared to a 15-year peak in FY24. Profits climbed 22.3% in FY24. Profits climbed 22.3% in FY24. However, employment grew by a employment grew by a mere 1.5%. Corporate profitability increased. It soared to a 15-year peak in FY24. Profits climbed 22.3% in FY24. However, employment grew by a mere 1.5%. Growing formal sector in India. Net additions to EPFO subscriptions have more than doubled, rising from 61 lakh financial year 19, 131 lakh FY24. Growing formal sector in India. Net additions to EPFO subscriptions have more than doubled, rising from 61 lakh EPFO subscriptions in FY19 and 131 lakh FY24. Job creation. Action towards enhanced in employment opportunities. Security versus flexibility. The role of regulation in job creation. Formulation of 4 labor codes. The Code on Wages 2019, the Code on Wages 2019, formulation of 4 labor codes. The Code on Wages 2019, the Code on Social Security 2020, the Code on Social Security 2020, the Industrial Relations Code 2020, Industrial Relations Code 2020, the Occupational Safety Health and Working Conditions Code 2020, the Occupational Safety Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. Driving employment opportunities through the digital economy. Driving employment opportunities through the digital economy. India's digital economy is projected to surpass $1 trillion by 2025. India's digital economy is projected to surpass $1 trillion by 2025. Gig workforce is projected to reach 23.5 crore by 2029-30. Gig workforce is projected to reach 23.5 crore by 29-30. Gig workforce to reach 23.5 crore by 2930. Building a great workforce, job creation in renewable energy sector. An estimated 1.2 million jobs in 2023 in renewable energy, with hydropower being largest. IRENA report. An estimated 1.2 million jobs in 2023 in renewable sector, with hydropower being largest. IRENA. Skill development, upskilling, reskilling, and new skilling for a changing world. 4.9% of youth 15 to 29 years have received formal vocational or technical training. 4.9% of the youth 15 to 29 years have received formal vocational or technical training, while another 21.2% received training through informal sources. 4.9% of the youth 15 to 29 years have received formal vocational or technical training, while 21.2% received training through informal sources. Periodic Labor Force Survey Report 2023-24 states that 21.2% received training through informal sources, and 4.9% of the youth from formal vocational training. 90.2% of the workforce 90.2% of the workforce is equal or less than secondary level education. They are having secondary level or less than education to secondary level. 90.2%. PLFS data shows 90.2% of workforce has equivalent to or less than a secondary level of education. Equivalent to or less than a secondary level of education. 88.2% of workforce 88.2% of workforce are involved of low competence occupations, elementary skilled and semi skilled. Elementary skilled and semi skilled occupational skills. 88.2% of workforce in elementary skilled or semi skilled, in low competence occupations involved. Skilling for a changing world. Reskilling and upskilling. Over 1.24 crore enrolled in Craftsman Training Scheme at Industrial Training Institute ITIs. Over 1.24 crore enrolled in Craftsman Training Scheme at Industrial Training Institutes. 1.24 crore enrolled in Craftsman Training Scheme. PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 1.57 crore trained. PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana 1.57 crore trained. Women participation under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is 58% in FY25, women participation 58%. Under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, 58% women participation in FY25. Industry partnerships. New ITI upgradation scheme 2024. New ITI upgradation scheme 2024 with upgrade of 1000 ITIs in hub and spoke model. With upgrade of 1000 ITIs in hub and spoke. Conclusion. By simplifying compliance, fostering labor flexibility, promoting worker welfare and labor reforms. By simplifying compliance, fostering labor flexibility, promoting worker welfare, labor reforms have created enabling environment that balances ease of doing business, protection of workers' rights, and this fosters a virtuous cycle of job creation. Virtuous cycle of job creation. This fosters a virtuous cycle of job creation, supporting sustainable employment growth and economic inclusivity. Sustainable economic growth and economic inclusivity. Summary. India's employment and skill development strategies focus on formalization, digital skilling, workforce participation. But job creation must accelerate to match demographic expansion. Job creation must accelerate to match demographic expansion. Chapter 13, Labor in the AI Era. Crisis or catalyst. Labor in AI era. Crisis or catalyst. AI will disrupt labor markets because of developments over last 4 years. Economic development adds to a fear of economic displacement. Economic displacement adds to a fear about AI. Exacerbating existing social and economic divides. Exacerbating existing social and economic divides. AI scenario. ILO estimates that nearly 75 million jobs globally are at complete risk of automation due to AI. ILO estimates that nearly 75 million jobs globally are at complete risk of automation due to AI. NASSCOM 25 to 30%, 35, NASSCOM 25 to 35% compound annual growth rate by 2027. NASSCOM estimates that Indian AI market will grow at 25 to 35% compound annual growth rate by 2027. NASSCOM estimates that NASSCOM estimates that Indian AI market will grow at 25 to 35% CAGR compound annual growth rate by 2027. A future for human centric automation. Deployment of AI Deployment of AI presents both opportunities and challenges for a labor rich India. Post technology revolutions, when not carefully managed, have been painful. Post technology revolutions, past technology revolutions, when not carefully managed, have been painful, characterized by widespread economic hardships, protracted unemployment, widespread economic hardships, protracted unemployment for displaced, widening income inequalities, widening income inequalities, mitigating the risk to India's labor markets requires robust enabling, ensuring, and stewarding institutions, requires robust enabling, ensuring, and stewarding institutions, coordinated efforts between government, private sector, academia, required for a future of work where AI is labor augmenting rather than labor replacing, where AI is labor augmenting rather than labor replacing. Future of work revolves around augmented intelligence, where workforce integrates both human and machine capabilities, where workforce integrates both human and machine capabilities. Future of work revolves around augmented intelligence. Conclusion: policymakers must balance innovation with social costs as AI driven shifts in labor market could have lasting effects. AI driven shifts in labor market could have lasting effects. Innovation with social costs. Similarly, corporate sector have to act responsibly, handling the introduction of AI with sensitivity to India's needs. Summary: AI and automation are reshaping India's labor market, presenting both risks and opportunities, requiring policy driven workforce reskilling, job creation strategies, AI focused labor reforms, requiring policy driven workforce reskilling, job creation strategies, AI focused labor reforms, requiring policy driven workforce reskilling, job creation strategies, AI focused labor reforms.